This is the Philanthropy Show, connecting and inspiring philanthropy.
Welcome to the Philanthropy Show. I'm your host, Luann Zaraga-Walters. With less than 2 months left in the year, nonprofits across the country are ramping up now for year-end giving. And so whether you're in the middle of your campaign or you're just brainstorming for ideas, this show is for you. Our guests today are all-inclusive. They know lots of stuff about it, and they're going to give you a lot of great things to go back to your group and say, this is what we're going to do. So let's get right to introducing our guests. Return guest, who, thank you, was our very first guest on the Philanthropy Show at the beginning of the year, Emily Benham, CEO, now a full year at the Nonprofit Leadership Center of Tampa Bay. Always fun to have her and our studio sponsor. And then as well, we have Jenna Civitello. Wanted to make sure I said your last name correctly. Civitello. I had to do it with the hand. Director of Stewardship and Volunteer Leadership Engagement with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Tampa Bay. So all of you Big Brothers Big Sisters out there, listen to some cool things they've got going on for year-end giving. So thanks, you two.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yay again. So we, Emily, we like to start with a quick backup with your backgrounds. We're talking today about the nuts and bolts of the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit daily life is fundraising. And end of year giving is a huge thing. So let's talk about your backgrounds in relation to that. Emily, give us a reminder of where you've been in this wide world of fundraising.
Well, it was fun. The beginning of the show, Jenna and I connected in that my very first job was with the Evansville Philharmonic in Evansville, Indiana, as general manager, and certainly among many other things with an orchestra, fundraising is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So really my early part of my career was in orchestra management, but more recently I was at Bayfront Medical Center for 20 years as the head of their foundation. So we did all kinds of fundraising year-round, and the end of year was one of our favorite times of year for many reasons.
I like that she's saying that because, you don't have to be afraid of it, and that's one of the big points of the topic today. That you can have fun with it. And the more fun you have with it, the more contagious it is.
We used to say it was the most wonderful time of the year.
See?
As a fundraiser. It really truly was. And you do need to have fun with it because some people can get overwhelmed with the pace of life in general. And you don't need your fundraisers to feel that way. You need them kind of jazzed up and having fun with their appeals.
Well, Jenna, now, I love what you guys are doing this year. But give me some background first in who you are, where you've been, and all of the fun fundraising aspects.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Massachusetts, and then I went to graduate school at Indiana University.
There's the connection.
The School for Public and Environmental Affairs, concentrating in nonprofit management. So I was fortunate enough to take some courses at the Lilly Family School on Philanthropy, which is the premier place to learn how to do fundraising across the U.S. So, and then from there, I worked for Indiana University in alumni relations and development, working for their foundation and the School for Public and Environmental Affairs for a couple years, and then relocated here to Tampa, worked for a local foundation here, and then I've been at Big Brothers Big Sisters for just about a year now.
So you've really had a vast experience too, as far as the different things you've been in. And I got to tell you, and Emily, tell me if you've met anybody too. When I was in school, we didn't have a nonprofit management degree. We didn't have a concentration even in it. So I love now that colleges and universities have that option.
Very true.
Because most of the people that I've met have majored in something else and then applied that within the nonprofit world. But you chose nonprofit management.
Right. And I even chose it at the graduate level, but it's amazing to me that there are even undergrads that are coming in knowing they want to go into the nonprofit sector, and particularly fundraising.
Intentionally.
Yeah, intentionally. And fundraising in particular, I would say. And I'll echo that, Luann. There was nothing like that when I was, I had a liberal arts background, but I went into a fellowship program, which is the only one of its kind, to learn orchestra management throughout the country. So that was unique, way back when. But now it's very excited to see all the schools really allowing that as a concentration.
I think maybe that's a part of, if you don't, the more educated you are in an area, the more comfortable you are with it. I'll just make that as a very broad statement, I think. The more people have information and knowledge around a subject, the less fear they have of it. So both from the degree standpoint, but then also taking classes, getting a CFRE, this kind of a thing. But what is behind that general fear of fundraising? What is it? Speak to that. And they're going, oh, well, because you don't want to have... So I'm sure that you probably have several things and experiences that can everybody can identify with. You're not alone. If you're afraid of it, you're not alone.
Yeah. I'll start with kind of my experience, at least, and what I hear from the Nonprofit Leadership Center. We teach a lot of classes in fundraising. Our Fund Development Academy is a big portion of our programming. And a lot of it is fear of rejection, fear that someone's going to say no, fear of the unknown. So sometimes it's the skills needed to be a good fundraiser, and there are skills needed, and those skills need to be practiced. But at the end of the day, I think some of us will be good at it and some of us won't be. And that's a good thing for those of us who've made a profession of doing that, because it's a particular skill of ours. So I think you can overcome that with training and practice. But there's some people that would be much better just opening doors for fundraisers to step through.
Jenna's
Absolutely.
nodding.
Yeah. Well, and they always say fundraising is an art and a science.
It is.
So there's certainly the science side is that skill set where it helps to go to training so you can feel more confident in how to plan a campaign and all the steps in that, because that's the part that I think gets overwhelming, where to start.
Right.
But there's so many small things you can do to start to reach out to your donors and your supporters in the area to make them become your strong donors. So I would say, and the art piece can be taught too, but there is this innate quality, I think, in some people that just enables them to open up to people, to have conversations, because you're talking about your financial position when you're talking with a donor, and some people are more comfortable with that.
And when you say science, I also think of the technology that has changed so much to allow opening up maybe a broader way that we can actually receive online donations.
Right.
We can do, you know, and we're going to talk about hashtag Givingtuesday, but all those types of things really let you do more via social media and whatnot, and we're really going to dig into that in depth, but it's time for our first break. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about hashtag Givingtuesday. What is that all about? Plus some other ideas to make your campaigns fresh. And still to come, our value tip of the week. We'll be right back.
This show sponsored in part by
Our studio sponsor, the Nonprofit Leadership Center of Tampa Bay, and My Paper Pusher. Consider it done.
Follow the Philanthropy Show on Facebook for behind-the-scenes action, polls, and commentary.
Welcome back to the Philanthropy Show, talking today about year-end giving. Now, we did a little summary of, yes, we know that there's some static and hesitation around fundraising in general, but the year-end giving is an opportunity. This could be a really fun campaign. What are some of the general hang-ups or obstacles that slows an organization down around year-end giving?
Well, I think part of it is just knowing, for a lot of organizations, it's the fourth quarter is the time they bring in the most revenue. So it is that little bit of an intimidation factor. How can we maximize this time of year where so many people are being so generous? With community fundraising, community nonprofits, I think part of the challenge is differentiating yourself from other organizations, because everyone is sending out those end of the year appeals, and particularly for smaller organizations, there's a cost associated with that. So it's figuring out how to maximize your potential to raise money at a reasonable cost. I mean, not like even our organization, Big Brothers Big Sisters, we can't afford to do multiple end of the year mailings. We really try to focus our efforts on one direct mail piece, and then follow it up with some emails and online social media presence, so we can really save a little money there. But I think it is a daunting time to really make sure you're separating yourself from other organizations and making sure you're being a prudent use of your budget and how to reach your donors.
I like that you said that. Emily, you and I talked briefly before the show about, I do think that the experience that I've had with smaller nonprofits is that the year-end giving campaign consists of a newsletter.
Right.
And that there can be so much more. It's not to say don't send it, right? But it's to say, how do you tie that in and really make it creative? Brainstorming sessions. When do you need to plan this?
I think you need to plan months in advance, and I think that's one of the things where nonprofits get caught, that they think, oh, here it comes, and I'm too late, and so I'm just going to throw a newsletter in the mail or one piece of direct mail. According to Charity Navigator, I think 40% of donations that come in during a year come in during giving season.
Wow.
So we really
40%.
need to plan and prepare for it. And again, I would echo what Jenna said. Yes, we need to distinguish, nonprofits need to distinguish themselves from each other, they also need to pay attention to the different segments in their donor base. Not every donor needs to get a piece of direct mail with the same message. Some donors need a phone call, some donors need a visit, some donors, even within that mailing, need a different message. So I think that's one thing that nonprofits need to focus on too, that segmentation of their donor base, and be sure they're responding to them and communicating appropriately.
And that indicates that you know your donor base.
Right. Right.
Going back to that relationship aspect.
Right.
Who doesn't read email? Who does? Who would be willing to? And I want to jump into what you guys are doing this year, Jenna, because I think what you've asked your network is fun, creative, different, new. So tell us about your end-of-year campaign.
Sure. So we're doing the typical pieces we do every year. We do a thank you postcard, we do our direct mail, we do emails and everything for Giving Tuesday. But this year we're also adding a component of getting people together, which people are already doing around the holidays. So we're calling it the Big Night In. And this is an opportunity to host an event at your home or a local restaurant where you invite your friends, your family, work colleagues to a small event. This doesn't have to be a big production. And then you get some materials from Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We can even have a testimony of one of our bigs and littles come in. And then you ask people to make a gift, whether you do that through charging a ticket price or just simply, once you have the group there, making an ask. But it's a less formal version of fundraising. Lots of times we do these big galas and these golf tournaments, and that's not for everyone. So this is a more intimate way to bring your friends and family into a cause you really care about.
Well, and what I like, two things. One, I think it's very creative that you called it the Big Night In, because those, if you know Big Brothers, Big Sisters, it's about the bigs and the littles, the big sisters, the little sisters, the big brothers, the little brothers. But the Big Night In gives the bigs, which is a big network for you. I mean, here is a core group of volunteers who are passionate about what you're doing in the mentoring aspect, and they are themselves that, but then they're reaching out to their friends and family, which is what you want to do. And I think what we've strayed from the original intent, or we've forgotten perhaps the original intent of that Benham model, the annual fundraising event, having a table captain, was meant to be that. To be that expansive network and not just fill a table. So here you've kind of changed it. Instead of saying, hey, come to this event, you're saying, do it wherever you want to. Have fun, go bowling, I said to one of your colleagues, why not do come dressed up in your favorite Star Wars costume? And you don't know what you could do with it.
So we have one woman that's passionate about vegetarian and vegan food. So she's hosting her event at a vegan restaurant.
Wow.
Fantastic.
We have other people that are doing a winter white and wine party. So again, I think it lets you be creative in what your friends and your family will appeal to them and get them to come out and then support a great cause.
And I hope you guys are going to be able to capture that.
Yes, we're going to have a social media campaign around that, so people can Instagram and hashtag their photos as they're doing, hashtag Big Night In. And then we're also going to have a dessert reception back at the Big Brothers Big Sisters offices on December 5th. So you can either host your party any night that week or on December 5th, and then invite all your guests to our office to celebrate.
So it's very flexible. And see, the points here that your campaign doesn't have to be elaborate. You come up with something that you can easily roll out, that's easily explainable, and then and let other people be creative. You don't have to be the sole creative genius behind it. You can turn it over. Hashtag Giving Tuesday. Now, you mentioned Giving Tuesday, and I keep saying hashtag because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure everybody is hashtag. You get a lot of good ideas. If you just Googled hashtag Giving Tuesday, you'd get a lot of great ideas for your end-of-year campaign. Giving Tuesday, what is it? How did it get to be? And what's that all about? For people who are like, what is this Giving Tuesday thing?
This will be the 4th year. And it was started as a way to mobilize, giving around the holiday season, with the idea that there's Black Friday, so everybody's shopping, and there's Cyber Monday. And I think some very wise people thought it was an opportunity to mobilize people to also give and remember that it's the giving season as well. Last year nationally it raised $45 million.
Wow.
And in a record setting, and as important as the money, it raised the profile of nonprofits and the good work they do in the community, and raised volunteerism. I think that's an important message of the day. Yes, it's important to remember to give, but there are other ways you can support your nonprofits as well. People were taking unselfies out in the community, which was lots and lots of fun. And people
I don't have any idea. What is an unselfie?
Unselfie.
I mean, I get the selfie, but what's
it's basically the same idea, but it's hashtag unselfie. So here you are caught in the act of doing something generous for a nonprofit. So I'm sure going to continue. Very fun. People had fun with that. I know Junior League last year had their holiday gift mart, and they had a sign, and you could take your picture in front of it with all kinds of things about Giving Tuesday and what Junior League of Tampa does, and people could take their unselfies in front of it. So it was a wonderful use of that.
I think kind of an aha for me is what you just said about raising the awareness, because when you have that many people sharing that kind of energy around a subject, whatever nonprofit it is, that is a huge tool to really implant. And imagine the first time you hear about a nonprofit, you hear about it in this celebratory mode, that here's what we're doing because we're helping the community in this aspect. That's awesome. That's very powerful. We're going to take another break, but we're going to talk a lot more about this, and that volunteer aspect I want to touch on too. Up next, our value tip of the week, how your dreams can inspire your donors. Truth or care, and a quick look at some of our upcoming shows. We'll be right back.
The Philanthropy Show is on demand every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at both thephilanthropyshow.com and YouTube/WatchMVVP TV.
Hi, I'm Emily Benham, CEO of the Nonprofit Leadership Center, studio sponsor for the Philanthropy Show. We were so fortunate to have one of the top fundraising executives in the nation here with us recently for a fund development conference. Jerry Panis headlined the sold-out event. While his topic was the art of asking for a major gift, his advice and stories were from all aspects of his 40 years of professional fundraising, and they were inspiring. I want to share my top 2 takeaways from Jerry about how to make your case with the donor. First, what's the number 1 motivator for a major donor? Belief in the mission of the institution, not tax benefits, not naming opportunities. He illustrated the point by reminding us when talking to donors to focus on the dream and the work of our organization, not statistics, not building plans. Secondly, he reminded us of the power of stories. He must have told 50 that day. It's that emotional appeal that the donor will remember in the end. Thanks, Jerry, for these wise words. I plan to incorporate these into my next conversation with a donor, and I hope that you will too.
Talking about year-end giving, and the thing that right before break, the thing that struck me was, yes, it is an opportunity for fundraising. I mean, that's kind of the heart of what we've been talking about. But more than that, you have side benefits coming from doing a year-end campaign that really pay off. Giving Tuesday, whatever that looks like, it's an opportunity to raise awareness. And also, Jenna mentioned during the break that it's an opportunity for saying thank you. Talk about that. I think that's a very important point.
Absolutely. Well, Giving Tuesday, it's coming right after Thanksgiving. So it's a time of year that people are thinking about gratitude, what they're grateful for. And as nonprofit organizations, we need to make sure our volunteers and donors feel appreciated. So I think that's something that's really important to incorporate in Giving Tuesday. And we talked a little bit before about segmentation. And so as you're getting gifts throughout the day, wouldn't it be great that one group of donors, once they made a gift, they get a thank you email immediately from your organization. And then maybe throughout the day, they continue to get thank you messages that say, thank you for making a gift. We really appreciate your support. This is going to be the impact of your gift for the rest of the year and the year going forward. And then, feel free to share this with other people in your family. Feel free to share that you made a gift with the organization and why you're passionate about our cause. And then there can be a segment of another group of donors who still haven't made that gift yet. And that group you can continue to say, you haven't made your gift yet. We still have, time throughout the day. We've appreciated your support in the past. Can you make a gift? So I think a combination of using the segmentation, but of making sure you're expressing your appreciation during that day is also important.
I love that.
Great idea.
You know, it's because we think of what you were just talking about, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, and we think of it, the message that we've marketed is be thankful and show your thanks to us, the nonprofit. But it's
Right.
also let's us, the nonprofit, show our
Right.
thanks
Absolutely.
in good stewardship.
Exactly.
If somebody, those folks who are watching now who are really looking to, okay, this is all great stuff, where can I start? What are some fundamental things for somebody who's used to doing the status quo year-end giving campaign, which might be a newsletter? What can they do right now to just push it up a notch?
I got a great idea. And that is from our friend Jerry Panis, who visited us recently for a fund development conference.
Master fundraiser and
One-
author of many books.
Sold out the conference twice. I mean, he's just extraordinary. And if people learn nothing else, myself included that day, is the value of a story. So if you're doing a newsletter, if you're doing a year-end letter, if you're doing an email, be sure it includes a story about your work.
Which
Not
we
a-
just heard in your value tip of the week. That, you know, and when you're telling the story, from his standpoint, it's not, so do you take it, like you said, newsletter, campaign, whatnot, but it can also be one-on-one, right? Isn't it to prepare?
Absolutely.
Have those back
Face-to-face,
pocket, have them
right.
ready.
And he talked about in the stewardship world the rule, the boy rule. Because of you, this happened. Jenna mentioned impact. So not just our fiscal year. We balanced our budget. We had not just facts and figures, but because of you, we were able to do this, and here's the person that directly benefited from it. So I think the value of telling a personal story in your year-end appeal in one way or another, face-to-face, in print, that's the number one tip if there's no other takeaways.
Because we know that our donors want to know how their dollars, or the volunteers, how their time is making a difference in the community and what that impact is. And those stories share that.
So one of the stories for Big Brothers Big Sisters that we're planning to tell through our end of the year campaign is it's really powerful. We've always said Big Brothers Big Sisters, we change lives. We help kids graduate from high school by pairing them with caring adult mentors. Some go on to college, go on to other great careers, but they need that mentor support. But also this year it became very apparent to us that we also save lives. There was a little brother who lives in the Sulphur Springs area who was luckily with his big brother one night. He missed a local birthday party that was going on. At that birthday party, somebody opened fired and another child was actually killed.
Wow.
So when we talked to this little brother, he said, you know, God must have had it in a plan for me that I was going to be with my big brother that night. And I missed the crossfire at that party.
Wow.
And it's just, and you realize when you're able to take the kids we serve out of the daily challenges of their lives, show them other possibilities, it really does save their lives.
Wow, that's awesome.
Powerful.
That is very powerful. Wow. Well, I think, you know, I've loved having you guys on talking about this, and we say humorously, you know, that there's a lot of fear around it, but the truth is there is a lot of fear around fundraising still. We want to shatter that and break it and make it fun, and telling life-changing stories like that and sharing the aspects of upliftment, I guess, is the word I'm thinking of, that your nonprofit can do in society, in the community, and how you're affecting that and how your donors are helping you do that, that's the fun part of it. That's the fun part, to go back to it and not to say, yes, we have this huge need, we do have this need, and that's why this nonprofit exists, but here's the fun in what we're doing, and here's how we're changing it, and this is why we do it, which brings me into, you'll notice how I'm segueing right into our segment called Truth or Care, which is, why do you do what you do? Your heart's definition of philanthropy. We live in our heads a lot because we have to get things done, but what is it that brings you back to nonprofits day after day? Why get a degree in it? What is there in your heart, in your passion, that's saying, I want to do it? Now, Emily, you've done this before, so we're going to start with Jenna, because I'd love to have you share again. But Jenna, let me ask you that. What is your truth or care, your heart's definition of philanthropy?
Well, philanthropy, sometimes it's a fancy word. You know, what does it really come down to? And I've always thought of it as time, talent, and treasure. And I think depending where you are in your life, that balance of what you're able to give can change. So for me right now, it's more about time. Being younger in my career, that's what I have the most to give. So for example, I'm a big couple with my husband for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and we mentor a 10-year-old boy. And like just earlier this week, we took him to a pumpkin carving event. And it's those small little things that you're able to give back, see the joy on his face. And it's something that he doesn't usually get to carve a pumpkin at home. He doesn't get to do that as part of his Halloween tradition. So to be able to do that with him is so meaningful. And then even though, you know, my capacity to give might be a little limited, I do definitely prioritize writing a few checks each year to a few nonprofits that I'm passionate about because it feels so good to give. And it's always so interesting because we think of those $1 million donors as the ones that really make an impact. Well, that $1 million to that, you know, very wealthy individual might be as much of a sacrifice as that $500 gift from someone that's more middle income. So I think it's important to think that everybody can make a little bit of a sacrifice and that it feels so good to be giving back. So.
And that's those 2 points that you made, whether it's doing something with your little or, and I love that. I just love that how they call them littles. That just it just feels fun. Whether it's doing something with your little or it's writing a check, the reason you do it is because of how you feel.
Right.
So you're connecting at some degree with humanity, and that's philanthropy. I love that. Emily.
Wonderful. Okay, just I have a quick story, a year-end story, and this was when I worked at the hospital. We were doing a big capital campaign again, so I'm all tied up in all the details of the campaign and how much we're raising and how that's going to happen. And we took our board on a tour of the old operating rooms because it was very important. We were going to upgrade and build new ones. So we had to show them why we needed new ones by showing them the old ones. And as we were there, we could hear the helicopter land on the roof of the hospital. Flight was based at Bayfront Medical Center. And it happened a lot, but it was particularly loud when we were looking in the ORs that evening and learned that the next day, victim of a shooting had been brought in. It was a young man who was working in an electronics store in a strip mall in St. Pete and got shot in the face and was brought in, was all over the headlines the next day, and was newly blind because of that, had 2 young children, and really just a tragic story. Now, we took great care of him, and he returned to life as a newly blinded young man. But for the trustees to see that all happens in these ORs already. This is a real occurrence, and our doctors and nurses do miracles every day in the space we have now. Imagine them in incredibly new and up-to-date and new ORs. That's what we do in this hospital. So we incorporated that into our year-end giving letter as well. And because it was a very poignant story, and that motivated me as a fundraiser too. That's why we're doing this.
That's awesome. That's really giving your board the chance to be right there and see it and feel it.
They all heard it. They all heard it, and they all read it the next morning in the newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what you just came out was another end of year giving idea, which is give your board a tour of what you're doing. That's a great campaign idea because they're your front line there too for networking in the community. Thank you both for coming on. Emily, great to have you on again. Jenna, so nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us, and be sure to check with us again next Monday. Also check out the past shows tab for shows you might have missed that you want to view. We'll see you later. Thanks.
Do you have an idea for the Philanthropy Show? Contact us via our website or email us at tps@myvideovoice.com.